Welcome into On Deck. So good to be back. Hopefully you guys can hear me. We're back, and I know it's been a while. I know it's been a minute since I've got on here and talked to you guys about everything going on in the world of Major League Baseball and, of course, the world of the Atlanta Braves. But I wanted to get on here, and I know it's a little bit early, but I wanted to get on here and kind of shoot the breeze about everything going on within the National League East, because that's been kind of the first topic I can sink my teeth into when it comes to the Braves. Obviously, the Braves haven't done too terribly, they haven't done a lot this offseason, to say the least. I think by now we all expected Freddie Freeman to be re-signed. I think we all kind of wanted a verdict on whether or not Marcell Ozuna would be returning, and none of that has happened quite yet. But on the contrary, the Mets have made some moves, the Nationals have made some moves, and it's starting to raise some eyebrows of some Braves media, some Braves fans, to be honest with you, it raised my eyebrow a little bit. So we're going to talk about it and talk about what the Braves can do, what their options are. And, of course, if you have any additional questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Just drop them in the chat. So first, let's go ahead and talk about the biggest thing out there right now, and that is Francisco Lindor going to the New York Mets. Obviously, this is a big-time deal. Francisco is going to the Mets for no less than $19.5 million for this year. He is open to a long-term deal with the Mets. And, of course, Francisco, if you ask anyone that watches baseball just casually, Francisco Lindor is a guy who most people would say is probably right up there in the top 2 or 3 shortstops in baseball. I don't think that is an exaggeration whatsoever. I think that is a very good assessment. And he's going to a team that is wanting to win, that wants to win and is willing to spend money nonetheless. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But that was not the only move the Mets made. Of course, they also signed starting pitcher Carlos Carrasco. And this was an interesting move. The Mets have always had pitching in the past few years. Obviously, they have DeGrom, Cy Young candidate every year. Syndergaard, who was dominant those early few years, had a couple of years, these past few. But all in all, their pitching staff has never quite been the issue. It's, of course, the offense. So I really think this is a solid move by the Mets. I think we can all agree there. I think this is a move that we didn't expect. It was a move that really came out of nowhere. And I think it's good for the Mets. Speaking unbiasedly, I think it is a good move for the Mets. With that said, we're going to talk a little bit more on this here later, but getting Lindor is a huge thing for the Mets. Obviously, star power. We all knew about the star power. But the numbers are a lot better than the former shortstop for the Mets, Ahmed Rosario. He, of course, got traded. And that was not the only move. Of course, they also got Carlos Carrasco, which adds to their pitching staff, and that's, wonderful for New York. But I really believe that if you look at the numbers here, would you have wanted the Braves to go get Lindor? And obviously the quick answer is yes, because he's one of the best shortstops in the game. But I think that the Braves have really had a mindset now of we're going to see what happens with Swanson. There's, we've raised this kid practically. He spent every bit of his major league career with the Braves. He had a really good season last year. He's always gotten better. And it'll be interesting to see what he does going forward. So that's my thought on the whole Lindor thing. And I'm going to get into more of that here later. But the biggest thing here is not these signings, in my opinion. I think the biggest thing when it comes to the Lindor signing, to the Carrasco signing, and to the other signings that we've seen with the Nationals, Josh Bell, Kyle Schwarber, these past few days, the more interesting thing is how many eyebrows have been raised about the Braves, right? The Braves haven't extended Freddie Freeman yet, and everybody thought that was a given this offseason, and I think it is. I think that will happen just because, frankly, the media pressure is all over the Braves to do that. And I think, even if it didn't happen this offseason, I would not be worried to see whether or not Freddie Freeman came back. So I really don't think that is a worry to be had. But the question of Duvall leaving, Marcell Ozuna is yet to be re-signed. There are a lot of questions, and rightfully so. What are the Braves going to do? How are they going to, advance the team? But I would like to remind you also, the Mets and the Nationals are playing catch-up. Phillies, you can throw the Phillies in there too. They are playing catch-up. to the Braves. The Braves have been first in the National League East for going on 3 years, and frankly, these teams have to adjust. They have to spend big money or they have to rebuild. Philly, of course, a couple years ago decided to spend big money on Bryce Harper. I had my problems with that deal at the time. I still have my problems with it. But at the end of the day, that was their choice. That's the move they made. That's the move they're going to stand by for the next 10 years. Compare that to this deal for the Mets. The Mets are the winner. I mean, you got Francisco Lindor for $19.5 million for 1 year. To put that in comparison, we paid Donaldson, I want to say $23 million for 1 year. So it is what it is. I do think that there are some positives and negatives here. But I really think the Mets really won this trade. For Cleveland, I think it is a drastic loss in a franchise player in Lindor. But for the Mets, this is a great pickup. And the Mets, behind baseball here for a second, the Mets got new ownership. They got a new general manager. And the general manager they had prior, Van Wagenen, I was not that big of a fan of because I don't know if you guys remember this. You might not. You may or may not. But Van Wagenen came out last year, I believe, and said, we're ready to win now. And if you just took one look at their lineup, you knew that wasn't the case. Obviously, a great mindset to have if you're the club manager, but you're the general manager. You got to make adjustments, and they just weren't there last year. They're a fun team to watch. Don't get me wrong. With players like McNeil, who always give the Braves trouble, DeGrom, who can pitch out of anything. They had a lot of fun players, but they weren't going to compete on a day-to-day basis with the Braves, who had a lot of talent, so much talent that half their pitching staff was gone. The majority of the starters were gone, and the Braves somehow managed to compete 7 games with the Dodgers. So, reminder, the Braves are not playing catch-up here. The Mets and the Nationals and the Phillies and, of course, the Marlins are. The Marlins are more competitive than the Nationals and the Mets at the moment. Think about that for a second. Who would have thought that? Last year, the Marlins were the ones we were competing with in the postseason. So keep that in mind whenever you're seeing all these big deals happen. And that wasn't the only deals. I'm going to get to your questions in a minute. I'll see you over there, Chad Davis. I'm going to get there in a minute. But I really think that more deals are going to happen. You're going to see the Braves make a splash here pretty soon. But I want you to ask yourself, would you rather... How about this? Let's talk about Kyle Schwarber first. Kyle Schwarber, of course, got signed to the Nationals. And I'm going to be straight with you. I am a Kyle Schwarber fan. Ever since he put a ball on the roof at Wrigley, I have been a fan of Kyle Schwarber. He is a guy, he is a playmaker, he hits a lot of home runs, he is a DH candidate, now he's in the National League, or he has been in the National League. I've always thought he would be a great DH, but my question is, if he's going to play outfield for the Nationals, right, the Braves are of course looking for an outfielder, that's where a lot of these headlines are coming from, understandably. But Ozuna has yet to sign to another team. Everybody thought, Ozuna is going to sign to an American League team. That is yet to happen. You have to wonder where the conversations are with him. And I want you to ask yourself, who would you rather have? Kyle Schwarber or Marcell Ozuna? Based on last year, I'm taking Marcell Ozuna. The Nationals just signed Josh Bell. I mentioned that a minute ago. Who would you rather have? Josh Bell or MV Free? There's just a lot of questions to be asked. And I think in a lot of these deals, the headlines are going to be, the Mets just got Francisco Lindor. And as a Braves fan, you have that huge side, we got to face him, the majority of the year this year. And I understand that, but there's a lot more here. The Braves have to make smart deals. The Braves, frankly, don't have to go out on a limb and sign these guys for big money. To me, the thing that makes this Lindor deal better than the Bryce Harper deal is, frankly, Lindor is going somewhere that has a foundation. They have pitching, right? They have decent players within the lineup. But Francisco is a piece that they were missing. Offensively, it's going to be a boost to their lineup for sure. And that's something that the Phillies didn't necessarily have with Bryce Harper. Not to mention the salaries, the deal, it's all completely different. This is a huge signing and trade, frankly, to Cleveland and the Mets. And it's, frankly, right now the advantage is all Mets. I know Giraffe Neck Mark, if you guys watch him, I know he is excited about this, and rightfully so. Any Mets fan should be excited about this. It's going to shape their year this year, but I don't think it's going to, frankly, dig the grave for the Braves if nothing else were to happen. I think the case is still out on Duvall. I think the case is still out on a lot of these guys and that are out there in the open right now. Yasiel Puig, to name one who we haven't heard from in a long while. He could easily come in and, frankly, be the Braves' left fielder if need be, or right fielder rather. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think your outfield for the Braves will handle itself, because even if we don't have a signing, worst comes to worst, you got Christian Pache in center, Acuna in right, Drew Waters in left. So at the end of the day, the Braves don't have a lot to lose. Obviously, I'd like to see a splash. I'd like to see a signing, as I'm sure a lot of you would too. But remember, these other teams are playing catch-up. The Braves are, have been, and I think will continue to be competing for the National League East, if not competing deeper into the postseason as they did this year.